Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Elevation, our weekly broadcast where we come together for just a little while to share a word from the Lord with you. I pray that all is well with you and your family. Happy belated Memorial Day to each and every one of you all. I pray you had a wonderful holiday, and to those who have served and those who served and those who made the ultimate sacrifice, we say thank you for allowing us to have this freedom for this country that we live in, that you protect and that you defend. We are grateful for your service and grateful for those who gave their life and gave absolutely all that they had. So I pray that you're well. I pray that you're healthy. I pray that you're healed. I pray that you're whole. And I pray that you are trusting God with your everything. And I do mean with your everything. I want to continue to press on and talk a little bit relative to message on Sunday, relative to I surrender. And understanding what that looks like, what that feels like, why that is important, how we have misconstrued, how we have misdefined, how we've misrepresented surrender. We've been taught that surrender is a bad thing. Surrender in some way may categorize us as being soft. It may show us as not being as courageous. But when it comes to our relationship with God, the more we understand how to surrender, what that looks like, the things that we can control, the things that should be on our plate, and the things that really belong to God. Look, some may take this the wrong way, but everything does not need to be lifted unto the Lord. There are some things that God has given us the capacity to deal with, to handle, the wisdom, the discernment, to sometimes even walk away or engage more, engage less. But then there's some things that we just have to surrender unto the Lord. And how do we do that? How do we know the difference between the things that we need to keep, the things that we need to handle, to put our energy and our effort into, and the things that belong to the Lord? In this morning, I was sharing on our war call one of my favorite scriptures, as I know you're probably going to chuckle like they did on the call this morning. One of my favorite scriptures from Psalm 37, verse 25, where David begins and tells us, fret not yourself because of evildoers. It's a psalm of wisdom, y'all. And David shares some things. But when he gets through to this 25th verse, he says, I once was young. I was going to say I once was lost, but I once was young. But now I'm old. But I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor their seed begging bread. And I just want to teach a little bit from the perspective of surrender relative just to that verse right there. And what that teaches us about God having total control over our life and us being able to trust God. Yes, I said you can trust God. You can fully trust God. God will not let you down. God will not lead you astray. And David understands that now. If you know the story of David, you know that David has went through a lot in his life. He's got a history. He's got a story. He's got a calling. He's had ups. He had downs. He's hidden out in caves. He's been threatened. He's run for his life. People have turned on him. But through it all, David is now looking back and reflecting back over his life. And this is what he recognizes and realizes when it comes to being able to trust God. And see, you can't surrender to something that you don't trust. And that's where we have to lay our foundation. There has to be a trust factor that's associated with surrender. And that comes from experience, y'all. That comes from what I like to see in this particular text is a long range view of David taking about his life. He's looking at his life from a long-term perspective and not a short-term perspective. Can I hang out just a minute right there, park my little moped? That too often we take the short view of our life. There are incidents, there are things that happen in our life. There are, how can I say it? There's situations that occur, things that we that engage in, things that may come our way that we didn't expect, that hit us the wrong way or not that pleasing and pleasant. And then it kind of overshadows and takes a front front row seat in our life. We have very short memories, so we forget about all the good things that God has done. We forget that so many of our good days we've had, and they do outweigh our bad days. But when the bad days come, the bad days tend to dominate. That's what I'm looking for. The bad days tend to dominate that particular moment, and sometimes we measure a huge portion of our life, or even where we are at that moment, based upon that single incident or that dominating moment by that particular bad thing. But David is saying, no, I'm looking at the collective here. He said, I once was young. So he's adding up the years. He's adding up his experiences. And this is where he lands. This is how he's able to surrender to God, because of after all the things that he's been through, after all the trials, after all of the tribulations, after all of the heartache, after all of the pain, after all of the wins, y'all, after all of the losses, after all of the recovery, after falling down, after getting back up. This is what he said. After all of that, God has never forsaken me. I've never seen, if I've stayed righteous and I've surrendered unto God, that God has never forsaken me, and I never went without what I absolutely need. And here's the caveat. Not only does God bless us with what we need, God blesses us with a lot of things of what we want. And David said, I once was young, now I'm old. Collectively, beloved of God, you cannot measure your life by episodic moments or experiences. You cannot measure where you are right now and what's going on. You cannot take this, who am I talking to? This single experience, this single moment, this heartache, this pain, this hurt. It might be a sickness. It might be an illness. It might be a place of want. It might be a place of lack. Don't allow this single moment, this isolated moment in time to captivate your entire life experience and define your relationship with God. Do you hear what I say? Do not allow these single moments in times, these snapshots in time to define your entire life. You got to look at this thing in totality. And David said, look, I recognize that I have experienced a lot, and all through it all, God has been faithful. Come on. God is a faithful God, y'all. God is absolutely amazingly faithful. That is the core of this message in Psalm 37 verse 25, that God has a faith that's unwavering for us. God is so long suffering, and even though we face hardships, even though we face trials, God never has abandoned us. Sometimes we abandon God, we leave God, but God has never abandoned us, because God cares for us deeply. David takes a long-term perspective, and he encourages us right now, and I'm encouraging you to take a broader view of your life, to look at your life in a bigger span, in a bigger spectrum. Don't look at these temporary difficulties that we're going through. Look at the amazing faithfulness of God. Look how steadfast God has been. Look at how unmovable God has been, and know that God cares for each and every one of us. But here's the thing, beloved of God, that surrendering unto God means you got to trust God. And that means understanding your limits. Somebody say limits. Understanding your limits. Know the things, beloved. Know the thing. Pray. Sincerely pray about the things that belong to the Lord, that you should keep, and the things that belong to God. Recognize that all of us have limits. And us as pastors and preachers, sometimes we are the worst ones. Because we think we can counsel every problem, we can speak to every situation, that we have this plethora of understanding, that we understand what every situation. No, beloved, I don't care who you are. We all have limits. I don't care what you do. I don't care how smart you are. You have to know your limits. And here is why. Because if you don't have your limits, you will spend your time, energy, and stress, and all of that in areas that do not belong to you, that you don't have. let me say it this way, that you have no business engaging in. You have no business being involved in it. It belongs to the Lord. Look, all I'm trying to say, beloved, is handle what you can control and know that you serve a God that is absolutely faithful, y'all. We are responsible for the input. Let me say that. We are responsible for the input. I'm going to say it again 3 times a charm. We are responsible for the input, but God is responsible for the output. In other words, God is responsible for the results. What are you trying to tell me, Pastor? What I'm trying to say is do your absolute best. Do all that you can while you can. But understand, when you have done your best, the rest belongs to God. The outcome belongs to God. How God desires to finish this thing, it is up to God. And beloved, let me leave this with you before I go, because my time is running a little short. Understanding something about God being in control and surrendering unto God is not a bad thing, and knowing that you can trust God. So often we get frustrated because we don't recognize our limits when it comes to other people. Let me hang out right there. What I mean by that is understand that you can't control the actions of other people. And we get frustrated, we get depressed, we get discouraged, we get knocked off our beam because we want other people to change. We want other people to move in a certain way. But you are not responsible for the actions of other people. And you cannot control the actions of other people. If people change, it's because they decide to change. It's not because they do it because we want them to do it. No, they do it because, beloved of God, they have decided to do it. I want you to understand, David said that I once was young, but now I'm old. Long-term perspective. He said, but I have never. That means that never, ever, ever means never, ever, ever. What I'm trying to say is when he said, I've never seen it, that it ain't happened and it ain't gonna happen. Because as long as I stay righteous, as long as I stay close to God, God will make sure that I am never forsaken. Jesus Christ on the cross said, my God, why have thou forsaken me? But then he flipped that thing. He said, not my will, your will be done. Understanding that I know your will is going to be perfect. It don't feel good right now, but the outcome is going to be absolutely amazing. Who am I talking to on this broadcast that's in a season that may feel a little dark for you? It may feel a little uncomfortable for you. It may hurt like absolutely, I can't say what I want to say. You know what I'm trying to say. It might hurt real bad, beloved of God, but understand that the outcome is going to be amazing. You may be down, but you ain't going to stay down. You may be struggling, but you ain't going to struggle all your life. Beloved, come on in the house. God is speaking to us saying, I've never seen. David said, I ain't never seen it. I ain't never seen it over the course of my life. It ain't going to happen. Never seen the righteous forsaken. Now here's the shout, nor their seed begging bread. Never seen the righteous's seed begging bread. And I shared this on the call this morning. I got to share this with you because it is worth sharing again. What that says is that God, because of your righteousness, God passes down generational blessings to your seed and to your seed. Boy, that's a shout right there that David is saying, I got generational blessings that the people that I love may not necessarily be doing right. They might not necessarily be acting right, but because of my righteousness, because of my relationship with God, my relationship with God can have an impact on their life. Because if I'm doing what's righteous, it's going to shine down. The anointing and the oil is going to run down on them. So what do I need to do? What do you need to do? I'm glad you asked, and I'm going to let you go. You need to share your testimony. And here's why. Because somebody has a short range view of what is going on in their life. And if you are at a mature place in your life where you can honestly look back over your life and say all things have worked together for the good, and it didn't feel good, but it worked for my good, there's somebody that needs to hear that. They need to hear it because they haven't been able to get through their storm yet. But if you tell them and show them your testimony, you tell them your story. You share with them how you surrendered, how you gave into God, and how God came through and blessed you. All I'm trying to say is somebody needs to know your story. Somebody needs to know that they can depend on God, and God will never, ever, ever let you down. Join us tonight if you can. Stop on by the church. If you're in the church on our area on a Wednesday night, stop on by. We'll be there live teaching this more in detail, more in depth. If you can't join us for Bible study, then join us for Sunday school. We're there every Sunday morning at 9:30. Can't join us for Sunday school on Sunday, then join us Tuesday for Bible teaching right there at the church. Can't make it then? We got midweek on Thursday. You can join us Thursday around that 11 o'clock hour for midweek Bible study. Look, there ain't no reason for you to not be in some teaching. Get your butt in the house of the Lord. Get your butt under some teaching, because the preaching is good, but the teaching is really where it is. I'll see you again next week. I'll see you on Sunday morning, God willing, and the creek don't rise. We'll be in the sanctuary worshiping God and giving God our absolute best. I pray that the Lord is blessing you. I pray that God is keeping you. Be faithful, be encouraged, but most importantly, keep your eyes on the prize.